Welcome to our podcast on Accounting Standards Update 2016-17, which amends the consolidation guidance currently in U.S. GAAP regarding interest held to related parties that are under common control. My name is John Barbagallo, and I am pleased to be joined today by Elena Bialik. Elena and I are both in KPMG's Department of Professional Practice in New York. Before we begin, Elena, can you help us understand why the FASB issued this new guidance?
Sure, John. Under ASU 2015-2, a decision maker that has little to no direct economic interest in a VIE may be the primary beneficiary of that VIE because of interest held by its related parties under common control. Specifically, the decision maker may be required to attribute an interest held by its commonly controlled related party entirely to itself when determining if it is the primary beneficiary. Some constituents expressed their concerns to the FASB that this approach may result in consolidation conclusions that are not meaningful, and as a result, the FASB agreed and decided to address these concerns by amending certain common control-related guidance in ASU 2015-2. And as a reminder, let me provide a brief refresher on where common control is currently relevant in the VIE consolidation model. As you can see on this slide, this question is currently relevant in the following three areas of the consolidation analysis. Firstly, common control is relevant when determining whether fees paid to a decision maker or service provider are variable interests. Secondly, it is relevant when determining whether a decision maker individually meets the primary beneficiary definition and should consolidate a variable interest entity. As you may remember, to be a primary beneficiary, a reporting entity is required to have two characteristics. One, the power to direct the most significant activities of the VIE, and two, the obligation to absorb losses or the right to receive benefits from the entity that could potentially be significant. And lastly, if a decision maker or service provider does not individually meet the primary beneficiary criteria, but collectively the related party group under common control does, companies need to determine which entity in the related party group under common control should consolidate the VIE. This is commonly referred as a related party tiebreaker test. John, as you know, determining whether an entity is under common control can be challenging. Could you please help us understand what does US GAAP mean when it refers to entities under common control?
Good question, Elena. Currently, U.S. GAAP uses the term common control in multiple contexts. However, the term is not actually defined in the codification. For purposes of evaluating the VIE-related party requirements, the FASB's intent was for the term to include subsidiaries controlled, whether directly or indirectly, by a common parent or a subsidiary and its parent. However, there is other guidance that is used in practice to determine whether entities are under common control. Although a consensus was never reached on EITF 02-5, definition of common control, it does provide relevant guidance a reporting enterprise should consider. For example, it provides guidance on how family members or a group of shareholders that have a controlling financial interest in an entity may be evaluated.
Thanks, John. That was helpful. Could you explain how the common control issue is relevant when it comes to the primary beneficiary test under ASU 2015-2?
Sure, Elena. Under ASU 2015-02, in order to determine whether a decision maker individually meets the criteria to be the primary beneficiary of a VIE, the middle box on our summary slide, a single decision maker is required to consider its direct variable interests as well as indirect variable interests in the VIE held through related parties in evaluating the potentially significant test in the primary beneficiary criterion. As shown on the flowchart, when decision maker fees, for example, investment manager fees, are deemed to be variable interests, and the decision maker holds an interest in a related party, the related party interests that are held in a VIE will be included in the primary beneficiary potentially significant test, either in their entirety or on a proportionate basis. The determining factor is whether or not the decision maker and the related party are under common control. As you can see from the flowchart, interests held by related parties under common control would be included in their entirety versus on a proportionate basis if the related parties are not under common control with the decision maker. Elena, would you mind walking us through how the new ASU changes this model?
Sure, John. As you can see on this flowchart, the FASB decided to revise the guidance on how related party interests are considered in the potentially significant criterion. Under ASU 2016-17, it would no longer matter whether the decision maker and its related party are under common control. So, if a decision maker holds an interest in the related party, an interest held by the related party in the VIE will be included in the potentially significant test on a proportionate basis as presented on this flowchart. Let's take a look at a quick example. In this structure, the decision maker holds a 10% equity interest in a related party, and the related party holds a 50% equity interest in the VIE. Under current guidance, if the related party and the decision maker are under common control, the decision maker would attribute the entire 50% interest in the VIE to itself and will meet the primary beneficiary potentially significant criterion. On the other hand, if these related parties are not under common control, the decision maker would only consider 5% proportionate interest in the VIE and may not meet the potentially significant criterion. Under the new guidance, in both instances, the outcome would be the same, and only 5% would be attributed to the decision maker.
So, Elena, does this mean a reporting entity will no longer consider the common control issue in the primary beneficiary test?
No, John. Companies will still need to think about the common control issue because they may be subject to the related party tiebreaker test, as presented in box 3 of our first slide.
Elena, so it sounds like it will be less likely that a decision maker will individually have the characteristics of a primary beneficiary. However, as we all know, the decision maker may still be subject to the related party tiebreaker test.
That's right.
Thanks, Elena. With regards to the effective date, ASU 2016-17 is effective for public business entities with annual periods beginning after December 15, 2016. So that's the first quarter of this year. The ASU may be early adopted in certain circumstances. So, Elena, I hear there are more changes coming down the pike to the consolidation guidance. Is this true?
Yes, it's very likely that the board will make some changes. The board currently has on its technical agenda a project to reorganize and make some targeted improvements to consolidation guidance. This project may include changes to the guidance on the fees paid to a decision maker and also changes to the related party tiebreaker test. Stay tuned on these future developments and continue listening to our podcasts. You can find additional information on US GAAP consolidation or accounting updates on other topics on KPMG's website. This is all we have. Thank you for listening and have a great day.